Is the new scout mechanic enough to make Bravos a real meta contender? Well, let's find out. This is part 2 of the Whispers from the Maze set review. Editor Bill here. Just wanted to pop in and give a few notes before we started. Firstly, I do have a friend joining me for this review just so we can bounce ideas off of each other and give you a break from my monotonous voice for 2 hours. Second, this video is made under the assumption that you already know the new mechanics going into this set, and if you're not familiar with them, I have a link to my video where I talk about them in detail in the corner here. And lastly, I think this content is best consumed sort of like a podcast, so if you just want to get back to work or do some chores and put some headphones in and listen along, let's dive in. So moving on to Bravos, we have Junior Chef. So 1 from hand, 3 from reserve, character, apprentice, animal. Very exciting stat line here with a 1/1/1. No effect, but it does have a passive support ability, which is when you play another character, I gain a boost up to a maximum of 3. That is just the standard Bravo support ability, which we've seen in some of these faction shifted rares, but this is going to be very common, seeing it now in the Bravo section. This card is pretty good, I think. It was powerful and limited, or in the sealed environment. Just a 1-mana 1/1/1, just fine. And it was often a 3-mana 4/4 or better if you'd been augmenting. You kind of just be playing characters in pre-release. So that passive support ability is easy to trigger. In Constructed, I do not think this is going to see play. So I think that's going to drop my rating down a little bit. Probably to 3 with Constructed in mind.
Seems fair. I did not have the pleasure of playing with Bravos in either of my pre-releases, so I feel a little less experienced with some of these Bravos cards. I think there's a really clear comparison for this card, which is Designer Drone, also being 1 and 3 cost, 1/1/1, just with the support ability, what gives it some boosts. I think the question becomes, which is more reliably going to be able to become a 3-mana 4/4/4, and how quickly? Because you know the Designer Drone can do it in 2 turns.
Yep. If you're playing this in Constructed and you're playing Kojo, this could probably do it in 2 turns as well, because Kojo makes a character. Oh no, sorry. This says when you play another character. So this is worse. Yeah, no, I think this is worse than Designer Drone. I'm solidly sticking with my 3. Because notably, when a token joins your expedition, that does not count for playing, so you do not get the boost on this card.
Yeah, what does play mean in Altered?
When you physically play the card.
Yeah, like from your hand or from reserve?
Or if like a card, say Auroch, for example, says you can cast the thing off or play the thing off the top of your deck, that counts as well.
Gotcha. Okay.
So I do think this is notably worse than Designer Drone. But it was solid in limited.
I'll stick with you at 3. I mean, I'd play it in limited. Like, the bar for a 1-drop in limited is pretty low. If you have a 1-drop that has all 3 stats, that's good. And if it has something else that goes with that, that's more good, more gooderer. I wouldn't call it great necessarily, but like, you know, that's kind of where you want your 1-drops to be for the most part. And this fits that bill. Actually, I'm going to give it a 4. I think it's more playable in limited. So, yeah.
A quick shout out for the artist's name. That is the craziest last name I've ever seen. Nestor Papatriantilifilou. Not sure. I butchered that really bad. That's got to be 15 to 20 characters in that last name.
Also, I love the art on this card. This little guy's real cute.
This is one of the triptych arts that they released. So it pairs with the pastry chef and one other card that I can't remember. But if you noticed in the pre-release kits, you got like an art card, and all of them are part of that triptych collection. So that is very cute. Moving on to the rare version. The only thing that changes is that it gets an ability where when you play it from reserve, if I have 2 or more boosts, resupply. This makes it significantly better because it doesn't care about having its maximum of 3 boosts. You just have to have 2 or more.
And you don't lose any to get this ability.
Right. Yeah, you don't have to pay anything for it. I think this bumps it up from a 3 to a 4 for me. You're probably still not playing this in Constructed, but at least it's card advantage if you do want to play it, or this is the only rare you have for your deck. Maybe you're upgrading your precon or you're upgrading your starter deck. This would slot in very easily.
I'm smacking it up to 6.
Wow.
I think that ability is that good.
Yeah, card advantage, great. I mean, I could be
Card
undervaluing
advantage
it
is
for sure.
great. Not costing a boost to get that card advantage is great. Not needing the full 3 to get that card advantage is great. Like, I think that's the perfect package for what I'm looking for.
Absolutely. And as for the faction shifted version, we actually get a nice little rare shift. So the hand and reserve cost is the same, the stats are the same, the effect is the same, but you have the standard Axiom passive supportability, which we've talked about to death, so I won't cover it again. I think this is great. Axiom wants to resupply. This might actually see play, to be honest. This
Yeah,
maybe
I think
bumps
it
it up to a
definitely could.
5 for me.
Yeah, I think I want to stick at 6. I don't want to go too crazy on a 1-drop, but like, yeah, I think the context for Axiom makes this potentially even better, and like you say, edges into actual constructed contention.
Yeah, notably, with most of the Axiom cards, you have to spend one of the boosts when you play it from reserve to get their effect, whatever their effect might be. This is not one of those. You just get a resupply with no additional cost. So, yeah, I think this is a
For
solid
sure.
5.
All
Okay,
right, I'll
I'm
stick
steering
with
your
6
ship.
on it. Bravos Excavator. 2 mana from hand, 2 mana from reserve for a 1/1/3 character citizen. When I leave the expedition zone for each of my boosts, another target character in your reserve gains 1 boost. So for each boost, another target gains a boost. So you're kind of like giving his boost to something in your reserve. But notably, this does not have a passive support ability. No ability to generate boost for itself. So how do you feel about a 2 mana 1/1/3 with potential upside if it interacts with something else?
I got caught in like trying to play this in the pre-release and being very disappointed with it every single
Mm.
time. So I don't love this card. I don't know if it would ever see any play in constructed. Maybe because Arcolano Milk is very popular and that just gives it a boost in fleeting right away. I'm not sure. This card is so hard for me to evaluate, to be honest. Did you have
I
did you
think
play this or have success with it in pre-release?
no, like I said, I didn't get a chance to play with Bravos yet
Mm.
at either pre-release. So, and I did not see this card. It was not resolved against me. I do think it's probably pretty bad. The common seems pretty bad
I played it more
overall.
than once and I was disappointed every time. So I
Yeah,
think this
that
card
doesn't
is
surprise me.
is not good. Maybe there's like some strategy in constructed where you can abuse this because it says for each of my boosts. So if you have multiple boosts on these things and multiple cards in your reserve, you can kind of spread them out if you want.
Hmm.
It's I don't know. I think this card is not great. I'm going to give it a 3, I think.
Yeah, I'm going to give it a 2. The only reason it's not a 1 for me is because for 2 mana, at least you're getting 3 in some stat. Uh, Granted, 2 mana for 5 stats total, pretty bad. You're not happy with that. But at least one of the stats, if you're playing in an expedition where you care about water, 2 mana for 3 stat that's relevant is not a bad deal. On its face, the text of the card's kind of irrelevant. I think it's pretty hard to trigger.
I think you
And
talked me down. I think I'm going to a 2 personally.
okay, I gotta stop. Maybe I should start giving my score first. All right, how about that rare?
So the rare is 2 from hand, 4 from reserve, so doubling the reserve cost here. No additional stats, notably. It has the same effect, and then it has a passive support ability, which is just the standard Bravos one, which we've talked about before. When you play a character, it gets a boost. So it does actually have a way to get a boost now to make its effect relevant in a vacuum, you know? Well, I guess not really in a vacuum. You have to play other characters to give it a boost, but it can do something on its own rather than
Yeah.
needing to rely on something else to give it a boost. So that still didn't really make much sense. You know what I meant.
For
So
that privilege, though, you have to pay 2 additional mana from reserve.
yeah, double the cost is a lot. So I still think this is bad. This is probably still a 2 for me, honestly.
At maximum, how do you feel about paying 4 mana for a 4/4/6 that, when it leaves the expedition, puts 3 boosts on something in your reserve?
I think that's solid, but
Yeah.
that is Magical Christmas Land. That means
That's not Magical Christmas Land. That is one card doing all the things that it says on the text.
yeah, but you have to like have something in your reserve to put counters on it. This card will have needed to come out and actually win an expedition or do something relevant and have gotten the boosts at some point from playing characters. I don't know. Like I maybe this is a 3 at the rare slot, but I don't know if you're ever playing this card. It seems so bad for me.
All right, stick with your guns. What do you rate it?
I'm going to go with a 3, I think.
Okay. I'm also going with a 3. Yeah, it is marginally better. I think the total potential upside is there. Like, you're not mad with that best case scenario for sure. You're not mad with the 2 counter scenario either necessarily. It's not as good, but like it's something. Less than that, you're pretty unhappy. And you really just don't want to have to help this do this thing if you can avoid it. So,
right. For the faction shifted version, this is quite different. So it's 2 from hand, 2 from reserve. The stats are all the same. But when I leave the expedition zone, for each of my boosts, you may augment target card in play or in reserve. So rather than giving boosts to characters in your reserve, you can augment stuff. So your permanents for Axiom, your characters in reserve, you know, I don't know. This is, again, another part of this card that's hard for me to evaluate. I still don't think this card is that good.
It's a pretty clear nod towards Axiom's permanence with their sap and keylong counters and all that sort of stuff. So, like, it makes sense to me what they're doing, but I still think it's a bad card without the ability to give itself boosts.
Yeah, for each of my boosts, right, yeah. So in Axiom, you still have to be able to give it a boost to get the augment effect at all. Yeah, this card's terrible. I don't think you ever play. It's not worth the rare slot. Just because it has a 3 in water, I'm going to give it a 2, I think.
Cool. Yeah. Same reasoning as my common, 2. Boo this man.
Yeah, boo this man. All right, on to Bravos Pendikar.
Bravos Pendikar. What is a Pendikar? Is it? I don't know. What is it? What is a Pendikar?
I have no idea. Never heard that word in my life.
This one is me, though. It is 2 from hand, 2 from reserve for a 1/1 character adventurer. At night, if I have 2 or more boosts, sabotage after rest. End text on this card. No passive support ability to give itself boosts. This has the same problem as the card we just talked about.
Yeah, that's a good point. I do think sabotage
the stats blow.
Yeah, the stats are not good, but it does have sabotage written on the card, which I think is better than any of the things that the excavator was doing before. At common, you're probably not playing this card, to be honest.
They know it's coming. This is my problem. Sabotage after rest is rough for me. Like, opponent plays around that. But they take your juiciest target or do something.
They can only play around it to an extent, though, because like if you play this card out and you give it the boost to sabotage, they still have to contest you. You know, like you're gonna get something, whether or not it's relevant.
Off you go, this thing.
Yeah, I mean that's a whole nother topic about how good off you go is, but yeah, I mean, if for constructed, you're probably not playing the common version of this. We'll get into the rare in just a second. This is like probably a 2 for me.
I'm going 1. I don't like this card.
It's a 2 for me only because it has the word sabotage printed on it.
I just don't. I think in the games where you even manage to trigger that sabotage, it will not be a good sabotage. I think you're often getting a 2-mana 1/1/1, which is dog. You're potentially having to invest another card into it to get sabotage. And at most, that additional card you're investing is probably giving it 1 or 2 boosts. It's just not a compelling package to me. I just think this is pretty unplayable.
Wow. Okay.
Calls them like I sees them.
Well, for the rare, we have a little bit different stat-wise. We've got a 3 from reserve. Additionally, it has the seasoned line of text.
Okay.
Yeah, now we're talking. In my opinion, giving this thing season makes it way better.
I agree.
Granted, I don't know if it makes it 3 from reserve better, but it is certainly better. I still don't really know how well to evaluate this card. There are like Bravos season strategies already, And Bravos is really good at putting boosts on things and putting more boosts on things. So getting this to get the sabotage effect would be pretty easy, and keeping the counters is very good. But like Ryan was just saying, off you go. The most played removal spell. You're going to cry yourself to sleep if you get this thing off you go. I mean...
After investing in it, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's tough. I wish the Bravos seasoned / boosting up, like going all in on a card, was better. But trying to evaluate it in a world where maybe Off You Go doesn't exist, I think this card would be good. I think this would be like a solid 5 or maybe even a 6. But in the world we live in, where removal is so easy to come by, I think this card's like a 3.
Yeah, it's better. I bump it up 1 as well to a 2. I think it's just still bad for all the same reasons. How awesome would season be if it was Salt Armor, where I keep my boosts and also I have Tough X, where tough is equal to the number of boosts I have?
That would be insane.
Would be way better.
Yeah, that would be insane. Yeah, hypothetical things here. Like you could play. I think Bravos has access to the Spindle, which gives all of your stuff tough, right? It's Muna and then faction shifted to Bravos, I believe. So that you're probably supposed to be playing that card in these decks.
If you're playing a season deck, yeah, for sure.
But again, that takes up a rare slot. This is also a rare slot. It's like maybe there's a world where this is played, but right now I don't think it's here. So
if there is, I don't want to live in it. What about this faction shift?
Faction shifted is just the same thing as the common. It is definitely harder to put boosts on things in Muna. It's not the hardest thing, but it is harder considering most of the effects that put boosts on things in Muna care about them being plants or animals or whatever. This is an adventurer.
Yeah.
I think this card is doo-doo, so I'm going to rate this 2, I think.
Yeah, just because back to the 1 for me. It's just booty cheeks. I'm not interested.
Okay, moving on to Spirit Wielder. So this is 2 from hand, 2 from reserve, character adventurer, a 1/1/1. Again, the stats, not great. It says, when you play me from anywhere, I gain a boost per boosted character you control. During the pre-release, I opened more than one of these cards, never played it, because it does require you to have a board state that has boosted characters on it. Because notably, this says character you control. If this said gain a boost per boosted character, maybe I'd consider it. But I never played this card. I never saw anyone play it against me in the pre-release. I don't think it will see any play in Constructed because Bravos is not going to go wide boosting all their characters. There's not a lot of support for something like that, at least not that I know of. I think this card is not good. I'm going to give it a solid 2, only because if you have a way to boost it when it comes in, it's at least a 3/3/3. But, that requires multiple cards.
I mean, you'd have to have 2 other boosted characters, right? To make it a 3/3/3.
Well, if you, let's say you play Arcolano Milk. This has it enter the battlefield, or enter the expedition, give itself a boost, and then since it sees itself with a boost, it would get another one. So
I see what you're saying. Yeah. Okay. Interesting. I didn't think about that. If it's entering with a boost,
it would see itself.
It sees itself. Okay. I think that's some interesting tech for a bad card.
Yeah.
I'm not playing this. 1.
Yeah, maybe I'm missing some unique synergies here or something. Like you can put counters on this while it's in your reserve, and then it comes in with additional boost. If you're playing this first, it's just going to get 1 if it has 1 boost on it. But if you're playing it as a finisher after playing a bunch of boosted characters or whatever from your reserve, I don't know. It seems like it was designed with limited in mind, and definitely not going to see play in Constructed.
Yeah.
As for the rare, it is 3 from reserve rather than 2, and you do have a 2 in mountain. Additionally, it has when you play me from reserve, I gain a boost. So it kind of has upside all the way around. When you play this from reserve, it's going to be a 3-mana 2/3/2 that sees itself and gets another boost. So a 3-mana 3/4/3, which is, not bad.
Is that how that works?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
you pick the order that these things happen in. You're not going top to bottom.
Right. Yeah. You can pick the order.
I see. Things. Okay. So you would stack the from reserve ability first, and then do the arrow ability to double up. So it's a 3 mana
Exactly.
3/4/3 from reserve at minimum.
At minimum, right?
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is definitely better.
Yeah.
Still don't think it's going to see play in constructed. If I saw this the rare version in my pre-release kits, I probably would have played this.
Yeah, I would have too.
But this is, yeah, still not great. I'm going to give it just a 3, I think, since it is better than the common.
I think I'm right there with you at 3. I think this is enough better that like you would actively play this from reserve. There's some scenarios where turn 1 you play this and hope that they don't have 2 in mountain or better on the side you play it on. And then there's some future turns where like, yeah, from hand it's not great, but potentially could be bigger. And then from reserve, the baseline's just like perfectly solid. 3 mana 3/4/3. I'm like never mad about that. And if you get better than that, you're pretty happy at that point for the mana cost.
For sure.
So yeah,
It wouldn't be
like
that
this
hard
is
to do
different.
unlimited.
This is different from the Pendakar in that I think this is like the upside is a little bit better overall.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hard pressed to say getting boosts is better than sabotaging, but the stat line is certainly better and easier to pull off.
Yeah,
So
more
for
often relevant.
the faction shifted is kind of interesting. It's the same stat line and cost as the rare version in Bravos, but instead of caring about boosted characters and getting boosts, it cares about anchoring. So when you play it from anywhere, I gain a boost per anchored character you control. So rather than caring about boosted characters, it cares about anchoring. And instead of when you play me from reserve, I gain a boost in the Bravos rare version, it says when you play me from reserve in Muna, I gain anchored. So totally shifting away from the common and the rare. I don't know how to evaluate this card. It is weird because Muna doesn't care a lot about boosts. Like I said, if you're not a plant or an animal, you don't have a lot of synergy there. And anchoring is like one of the best things you can be doing. I'm not really sure how to evaluate this.
How many days do you think you end playing Muna with more than one anchored character?
I mean, if you're going all in on the anchored ability, it'd be pretty easy to do. Like if you're playing like Spindle Harvesters and Snoozer Shroom, or I can't remember if it's Snoozer or Sneezer Shroom, whichever one anchors itself. Like those are 2 cheap cards that come in and anchor from both sides, the reserve and from hand. So like if you're playing those and any other anchored support, I think it's pretty easy to do. So like maybe there's a world where you're trying to anchored go wide and this guy comes down as like a finisher. I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah,
this card is pretty far-fetched.
This card is weird.
The answer in my head to my question is 1. I think most days you end with 1 anchored character.
Yeah, most days probably 1, but I don't think it would be hard to end with 2. 2 is probably the maximum.
At that point, you're then getting the upside we were just talking about for the Bravos rare version, which is where it's a 3 mana 3/4/3.
Notably, it doesn't anchor itself from hand, but it does have a hand cost of 3 or less, which a lot of Muna cards care about for anchoring it. So it would be easy to anchor this card.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, this card is weird. I don't know. We're spending a lot of time on this guy, but I don't actually know if it's good. It's probably like a 4, and that's over-evaluating it.
Yeah, I'm going to stick with 3. And really, I was thinking 2 initially. And 3 is coming from, if there is some sort of go wide anchor strategy, this would obviously be like a key role player in that deck, if it exists. Interesting to see if it comes about. We'll see.
Like at its worst from reserve, it's anchored 2/3/2. So like that's not terrible. And if you're playing Tasia, that is an anchored 3/4/3 from reserve.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. This card's really hard to evaluate. Not sure. But let's move on from this guy. Let me know in the comments what you think of the Spirit Wielder and Muna. Talarian Skater, is this you or me?
I don't know. I think we got to mix up, but I'll go. We have Talarian Skater. Uh, let's be clear. Talarian, not Tolarian.
Right.
We're not going to mix our properties here. 3 from hand, 3 from reserve for a 2/2 character messenger. Has Scout 1. We love that Scout 1. And the arrow ability from anywhere. Target character gains 1 boost. I like it. This feels like a super solid role player.
I opened this in my pre-release kits only, I think, maybe once, and I was very impressed with it every time that I saw it.
Yeah.
Having the Scout 1 as an after you effect was relevant, and coming down as a 3-mana 3/3 from wherever, always happy to see that.
And it's a board impacting Scout 1 because you get to give something a boost.
Right, you don't have to give itself the boost.
That does mean that normally you're going to play something into one of your expeditions before you scout this. So it devalues that after you portion a little bit. But it's just nice. It's nice to boost something for one to say, go ahead. Worst case, if you have to play this just from hand straight up into an empty board, it's a 3-mana 3/3. Not terrible. You'd want more for sure, but for a common, you're not mad at it either. I like this card. I think it's like a 5.
Yeah, I think this card is good. Something that came up for me during the pre-release is I was able to scout and put a boost on something that I was already definitely going to lose to after you, and then immediately follow up with something better in the other side. So you can boost your opponent's thing on a side you know you're going to lose, and just use it as a 1-mana after you.
Interesting. Our rare, we're going to see a +1 in the grass category, bumping our skater up to a 3/2/2. And a slight change to our text here. Still Scout 1, but from anywhere, target character in play or in reserve gains 1 boost. So a little bit more flexibility. I still like it. This is just better. The cost remains the same, and you just get a little bit more stat and a little bit more flexibility. I like it. I bump it up to a 6.
For sure. Yeah.
But did you rate the common?
Oh, I don't know if I rated the common. I think this card is good at common. It's probably not going to see much play in constructed. I could maybe see it see a little bit of play. I don't know. Scout 1 is really good as an after you, and giving boost to things like we were just talking about the Bravo seasoned going that direction. Like this could be good in that kind of deck where you're just paying 1 mana to put a boost on something after you. I don't know. I think this is probably a 3 for constructed in mind.
Okay.
But it was good in limited. I'll give you that. I played this in pre-release, very happy with it every time.
Does the rare move the needle for you?
The stats are better. Yeah, I mean, I do think this is probably a 4 for constructed in that sense, because it can come down as a 3-mana 4/3/3, or it can boost one of your season thing in reserve if that ends up mattering. If you're going the Bravo season route, not sure.
Yeah, for me, I'm sticking at 5 just because for constructed purposes, I don't think this is likely where you're going to spend your rare slot. I think it feels like a common role player for Bravo's decks that want this effect. So I just don't think you're going to end up using the rare. So my rating is more influenced by limited because I think that's where you'll see the rare in play more often.
Yep, I think that's a fair point.
And then we have our faction shift into Muna, where we are just straight up getting the rare version. 3-mana, 3/2/2. Scout 1, target character in play or reserve gains a boost. How does this fit in Muna?
Yeah, this is... Scout's really weird in Muna because of the 3 heroes you can play. One of them is Tasia, and if you scout this as your first character, which you're probably not going to do, but...
Yeah, because
but in Tasia, you're playing anchored characters, so maybe you want an after you effect and put a boost on a thing. This is bad because if this is your first character you play, it eats that boost from Tasia. This card's weird, man. I'm not really sure. It synergizes kind of well with an Arjun deck where you can pay 1 mana, put this right into your reserve, boost something. You can anchor it because it has a hand cost of 3 with Arjun's effect, or you can just use it as a 1 mana, put it in my reserve as something to discard and anchor something else for Arjun. This is a weird one. I'm not really sure how to evaluate it. I think I'm going to give it a 4 just because the stats and the costs are good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm thinking 4 as well. I think this is kind of worse in Muna for the most part. Yeah, there's the upside of boosting things that you have that are anchored or that you're going to anchor. The Tasia negative synergy is just not where you want to be. I don't know. This feels better built for Bravos, which is why it's in that faction. So yeah, I'm going to stick with a 4.
Moving on to Pastry Chef. We've got 3 from hand, 5 from reserve, 2, 4, 2. The only effect it has is from reserve. If I have 2 or more boosts, draw a card. And then, of course, it has the passive support ability that all the Bravos characters have. When you play another character, get the boost, blah, blah, blah. In the pre-release this weekend, I was pleasantly surprised with this card every time.
Mm-hmm.
I absolutely loved this card. I played 2 of them in one of my decks, and I got to draw a card both times I played it. It was massive. It drew me a card. This card was great. Now, on the flip side, for Constructed, don't know if this is going to see play. The stats are okay. A 3-mana 2/4/2 is like fine, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to be playing characters, that's how you win expeditions. So you're going to be getting boosts on this thing. And it does draw you a card rather than resupplying, which is a lot of what these Bravos cards have been doing when you play them from reserve. Drawing a card is twice as good as resupplying. So if you play it from reserve with only 2 boosts on it, it's going to be a 5-mana 4/6/4 that draws you a card. I'm not sure. Like at a common, that could be playable. What do you think?
I think in Constructed, the big problem is that for the version of this card that is valuable, which is when it's coming from reserve with at least 2 boosts, you're still spending 5 mana for not like the biggest chunk of stats I've ever seen for that mana cost. To get the minimum to trigger the from reserve ability, you're getting a 4/6/4 for 5, which is like pretty good, but like it doesn't blow me away. I think this card is sick and limited. I would have loved to play with this card if I could open Bravos Rares ever to save my life. But yeah, I'm curious to know if this will end up being successful and Constructed. Drawing a card is great. Being able to boost itself up is great. It doesn't need much help to get to where you want it to be. On like a turn 3, sort of, you play this and some other 2-drop just to sort of get your board moving, and then a couple turns later, you're playing this on 5, and you're playing, a 2 or 3 drop. Then you're in pretty good. You're probably securing at least 1 expedition on that turn and coming away ahead on cards. Tricky. I like it. I want to give it like a 7.
Wow.
I like this card.
That's pretty high. I mean, I would value it pretty high just because of my anecdotal experience of playing it in the pre-release. Like I said, I was very impressed with it every time I saw it. Yeah, this card is good, man. I don't know how well it's going to translate to Constructed. Like you said. Oh, you know what I just realized? This thing has a hand cost of 3. You're never playing this in Constructed. Like, it's going to get off you go'd after you spend 5 mana on it. You're going to be so sad.
Well, yeah.
It at least draws you a
got
card.
Your card out of it, yeah.
Yeah, but then you spent your whole turn to get 2 mana off you go and then lose both expeditions potentially. So his card probably sucks in Constructed. But in Limited, it was a bomb.
Oh, off you go. So warping.
Yeah, I think I have to give this like a 3 for Constructed, sadly.
Whoa! All right. Yeah. Our biggest delta yet.
Only because it's just going to be so susceptible to off you go. And it's not going to... I'm looking at the other versions. That's not going to change. So... yeah, man, that's tough.
Off you go is a mistake. Can we talk about how the rare version, he gets worse at being a chef?
Yeah, I was noticing that.
He just blasting that icing all over the place. What are you doing, pal?
Yeah, he does have a cooler uniform, though.
That's true. What else is different?
So this guy's got seasoned now. He doesn't change besides that, and seasoned is fine. He doesn't... The seasoned stat is weird because he doesn't actually give himself a boost when he comes in from hand, which is like when seasoned would matter. So you would have to be playing something else to give this guy a boost. On the top of my head, the first one that comes to mind for Bravos is Arcolano Milk, which gives him a boost when he comes into play, but it also gives him fleeting, which means he won't make it to the reserve.
Yeah,
so
true.
I'm not really sure like what the seasoned is doing on this card. It's really weird. You want to just
devalues the passive. Like if he's bringing boost with him into reserve, the passive is less valuable because you're going to get less triggers off of it.
Yeah, season's so weird.
You're more likely to just be able to immediately pop him right back out of reserve for the full value. But I don't know.
I mean, I see what they were going for because there are cards in this set, especially in Limited, that can remove fleeting from your guy. So if this guy's got seasoned, he comes out, draws you a card, you remove fleeting from him, you can play him again next turn. He has all his boosts still because of seasoned. You draw another card. Yeah, I don't know. The seasoned just feels so out of place here. Again, what did I rate the common? A 3? This is probably still a 3.
Okay. Yeah, I think my rating stays the same. I definitely see what you're saying, where if you have the ability to manipulate the fleeting and remove fleeting, then looping this to draw more cards, like you're living the dream at that point. But if you want to talk about Magical Christmas Land, I think that's where you're living at that point. So again, I'm sticking my rating mostly around Limited, where I think both versions. I mean, you'll play as many pastry chefs as you get because they're just sick. So.
For sure. I think this card was great in Limited. Again, I wish my rating could be higher, but just in the context of Constructed, the removal's too good, and this guy just falls so short to that removal. Moving on to the Ysmir faction shifted version. This card is just the same thing as the Bravos Rare, except it's cheaper from reserve. Like, this card it's so good. It does have the downside of you have to play a spell with its passive support ability, and it has a maximum of 2 boosts. So you do have to have the maximum to get the 2 or more boosts draw card from reserve effect. I think this card is excellent, and I think it could definitely see play in Constructed. Looking at the best deck in the format, there's a Faunus. A Faunus, you just play a spell, you put boosts on this guy, he has Season, goes to reserve, keeps the boosts. Like, that is a very powerful interaction. Granted, this card was probably designed before they recently suspended Helping Hand. That card would have gone absolutely crazy with this.
Yeah,
because
for sure.
You play him from reserve, you play Helping Hand and remove the fleeting, you drew a card from the played from reserve effect. This guy gets another boost that he keeps and then goes to reserve. This card would have been extremely powerful with Helping Hand still Constructed. I think this is good.
They might errata and unsuspend it, and potentially the combo will live.
I mean, it's definitely better. I mean, I'm probably going to give this a 5, maybe a 6. I'm not sure. Just with a Faunus in mind, this card gets really good really fast.
Sure.
I think I'm going to give it a 6 because it will probably see Constructed play.
Wow. I am bumping it to 8 because of the Faunus interactions. It does seem very at home there. It's my highest rating, I think, so far.
Yeah,
we're the good cards.
Yeah. I think this is one of them. This is one of the best ones we've seen, I think. This card is strong for sure.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's going to be an absolute bomb in Constructed, but it'll definitely be good in Faunus.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Moving on. We've
Next
got
up, Hestia?
I think so.
Nailed it first try. Not a chef, but dressed like one. We have 4 mana from hand, 4 mana from reserve for a 4/2/4 character deity, a classic altered type line here. No rules text, and a passive support ability of when you play another character, you may pay 1 to give it 1 boost. So Hestia is not boosting herself. She's letting you pay to boost other people. The real question is 1 mana worth 1 boost?
Find out next on.
I think the answer is no.
No, yeah. In Limited, I think it was sometimes worth it. Like I played this in the pre-release, and it was sometimes good just to spend that extra mana on making my thing a little bit bigger. But most of the time in Constructed, this card is not going to be played. I think this card is not good. If comparing it to the cards right in front of me that have Scout, like the rare version, where you can put this straight into reserve, You can't do that with the common version, and I think that makes it significantly worse. I think this card is probably like a 2 for constructed.
Wow. Brutal.
The stats are not
Yeah.
good.
I think you're more likely to do your mana curve filling moment of spending 1 to give something you play a boost in limited, where you're more likely to have a somewhat awkward curve and not quite be able to fit things together the way that you want. So I think Hestia is a role player at common in limited. You're not thrilled to play a 4-mana 4/2/4, and so you're more likely to keep her in reserve. I also think she's the type to fall victim to an overloaded reserve and just be the card that you purge, unfortunately. So, I don't know. I feel like she's probably like a 4. You could play her. She has relevant stats. You might be able to win an expedition because she has body yaddy yaddy, but, it's just not incredible.
Yeah,
Right.
there might be a synergy that I'm missing here for constructed, where like you can pay 1 to give something a boost that's really powerful to have that repeat effect, but I don't know it, so I don't think my rating can go higher than a 2 for this card.
Fair enough. Now the rare, we do get a little update to our stats here. We're now 4 across the board, 4/4/4. So 4 from hand, 4 from reserve, 4/4/4. How many times can we say the word 4? And as was mentioned, Hestia gets upgraded with Scout 2. Supportability is the same.
It's significantly better. It's a 4/4/4 for 4 from both sides. It has Scout 2. I mean, it's just way better all the way around. I think this bumps it up, but I still don't know how playable it is. If there is a playable version of Hestia, this is it. So I'm going to give it a 4, I think, to kind of match the stat line.
2-point bump.
Yeah, because, I mean, 4-mana 4/4/4, that ain't bad. Scout for 2, not bad. And, like, it's just kind of not bad all the way around. So I think that leaves me at the 4 spot.
Yeah, I jump 1 place to 5 on this version of Hestia. I think, like, for limited purposes, there isn't a huge distinction here. You're more likely to want to play from hand Hestia, just because, like, 4 in grass or water, you're pretty likely to be able to place that somewhere where you feel pretty good about that move. And then rare, I mean, 4 everywhere, that's even better, more reliable, and gives you that scout optionality. So it's like a little bit, it's a marginal improvement. When we look at the faction shift into Axiom, we're back to our common stats, unfortunately. 4 from hand, 4 from reserve for a 4/2/4, with nothing in the text box and the same old basic supportability of pay 1 to give something a boost. So we just get the common faction shifted into Axiom. I don't think this is good.
Yeah, I don't think it's good either. This, sadly, it says when you play another character. Axiom would have loved to see, like, when a character joins your expedition, because you could, like, boost a brass bug or something. But no, I think this is still bad. This is back to a 2, I think, for me.
Yeah, I'm right back to 4, just based on body, and you might play it sometimes, but
you know rough. What? This might actually be my first 1 of the video, because I don't think you're playing this card. It's never taken a rare slot. I think this card is bad.
All right, Axiom faction shift getting a 1 from old Bill. Rest in peace, Hestia.
Yep.
Next,
moving on, we've got what I believe is pronounced Aoife, I think it's Aoife. My fiance went to school apparently with someone named this, and I think she said her name was Aoife. So let's go with Aoife Fire Avatar. This is 5 from hand, 5 from reserve. Character Adventurer Elemental. Not sure how this character is an elemental, but she just looks like a person to me. We've got a 5/4/5 with Scout 2. And when you play me from anywhere, you may have another target character lose fleeting and gain 1 boost. So this is what we were talking about earlier. There are cards in this set that can remove fleeting and give you an additional benefit. This card is sweet. The common version has good stats. Well, good enough stats for what you're paying for. It has Scout 2. It can remove fleeting and give a boost. It's pretty versatile. And I played this, and I was reasonably happy with it in the pre-release. I'm not sure. How are you feeling about this card?
I like this card. I think here's the trick. At 5 mana, you're more likely to get the benefit of the From Anywhere ability via Scout. To me, this feels like a split card of like you can either pay 2 to get this sort of helping hand type ability of lose fleeting, gain a boost, or you can pay 5 to get a 5/4/5. It's unlikely to be able to realize the full value, particularly on the face from hand, until pretty late in the game, and those situations are going to be fairly rare. But like, I'm not upset to play a 5 and a 5/4/5. I'm thrilled if I get to get both halves of also removing fleeting from something and boosting that thing, particularly if that thing's seasoned, which Bravos has that keyword, right?
Right.
But I think this is again in that category of cards that cost 5 or more that I would like, and I usually have like, 5 or 6 of those in my limited deck. I would play this like pretty often in those slots unless I have something a lot better. And I think it could be a constructed role player just because of the flexibility and that this is a decent amount of stuff that you get for a common slot.
For sure. I mean, there's a lot of heroes that want the stat line and everything that this card is doing. There's Etsadi, who cares about hand cost. You can play this for 2 mana. Etsadi lets you draw a card because when you play something with hand cost 5 or more, you get to draw a card with Etsadi. The first time you do it anyway. And then that has random synergy with like Kojo. If Buddha, the token that Kojo makes, is in play, you can scout 2 to give it a boost and have it lose fleeting. Not that it would have fleeting, but scout 2 to just give it a boost and kind of after you. Or you can play it for the 5 mana cost and get a big body and boost your Buddha, which is not bad. It ends up being 6/5/6 worth of stats for 5 mana.
That's true. With Buddha in play, you do have something to target even on just 5 mana on turn 3.
Right. Assuming you're the first player, of course.
True.
Yeah, this card is cool. For constructed, I don't know if it's going to see that much play outside of Etsadi. It's kind of niche. I think I'm going to give this a 4.
Okay. I'm putting it at 6. I'd like it a little more. I think it's actually reasonably likely to see some play in constructed, but just as a rock solid role player that you're never mad about having in your deck in limited, I like it at 6. It's a little better than that sort of, rated 5 classic pawn, good solid card. I think it's a little better, by an inch over those things.
Yeah, moving on to the rare one. This is all the same card, except Scout is now 1 mana instead of 2.
Hey,
that is half as much mana. That's a pretty big diff. That is probably
quick
enough
math
to move the needle, to be honest. And that bumps it up, I think, to a 5 for me.
Okay.
This card is good. Like I said, with Etsadi, if you're playing that hero, on the very first turn, you can spend 1 mana to after you and draw a card. That is pretty good.
Yep. You are not mad in that situation, for sure.
Yeah. Does this change anything for constructed or for limited? I mean,
it bumps me 1 for sure to 7. Like Scout 1 is just, it's more than twice as good as Scout 2. I think like 1 mana plays that pass the turn that affect the board. That's just huge. It's really hard to overstate how huge that is. So I like it at 7. I might be wrong. I think this card is sweet, and the art's really cool. She's on fire now.
Yeah, fully. It is cool. Now I see where the elemental comes from. Granted, I could be undervaluing this card. This could be 6 just because of how strong it's going to be in Etsadi. Etsadi is one of the heroes that hasn't seen a lot of play up to this point. There's not a lot of synergy for it outside of this set, which adds a lot with the Scout mechanic. So you'll see in a future video, I think I'm going to talk about one of the biggest winners, and Etsadi, I think, is going to be one of those with the Scout mechanic. But as for the Muna faction shifted version, this is the same as the rare, as far as I can tell. There's no stat difference, no cost difference. This is still good. I don't know if it's that much better in Muna versus Bravos, but removing fleeting from an anchored character in Muna can be really good. So with Scout 1, removing fleeting and giving an anchored character a boost, removing the fleeting, this might even be better, and you might see more play than the Bravos version even.
Interesting.
I think this could be a 6 in Muna.
Wow.
Just because, granted, it is worse in Tasia, like we were just talking about, because Scout eats the Tasia
every
boost.
Scout card is just worse in Tasia.
It also doesn't really have synergy with Arjun or Rin necessarily, so maybe it's not a 6, but
I mean, it got 5 in green. That helps Rin.
yeah, I think it's fine. Scout 1 is good. I'm gonna go 6 and not be upset about it.
I'm going to stick to 7. I don't think it's different enough in the different faction context to shift my number.
That's
Cool.
Aoife, Fire Avatar.
That's Aoife, your pronunciation challenge of the set. On to the Lernaean Hydra, a 6 from hand, 6 from reserve, 0/0/0 dragon character. Bill, how do you feel about a 6-mana 0/0/0? Are you feeling good about that?
Yeah, this is gas, dude.
It turns out it has text on it, actually. Yeah, hang on. There's more words there. From anywhere, I gain 1 boost per mana orb in your mana zone. That's
what do you think? Is that good?
I mean, this is just a stat stick. Like, she double extra thick. Really good and limited is what I'll say. The fact that this, scales to the stage of the game, that you get access to this on 6, and at that point, you're probably going to be able to slam this and win an expedition. Especially because I don't think the removal in this set's like super strong overall. And then later, like, if you're getting a 6-mana 9/9/9 and playing something for 3, you are living high on the hog. Like, you're happy with that situation.
I will say this card can definitely be a trap in limited because
interesting.
There's a lot of counter manipulation and removal in this set in pre-release. Like, I won one of my games from playing the Sap Duende card, which we haven't actually gotten to yet in the review, but that card swaps boosts. This notably has 0/0/0. So if you're able to take boosts off of it, it becomes really bad.
Yeah, for sure.
I was able to win the game with 3 mana worth of spells or cards. My opponent tapped out for this or exhausted all their mana orbs to play this card. I played 1 card, the Sap Duende, for 2 mana and drew a card that took all of its boosts off. So I think this card is good, but if you're seeing a bunch of Sap Duendes or people playing a bunch of boost manipulation, like swapping things around, this card is it's so susceptible to effects like that. It makes me really hesitant. In Constructed, I don't think this is going to see any play.
No, I think it's
just a vanilla.
Constructed. Yeah.
I really like the art, and like if this is, what you've got, maybe you're playing it. I'm just going to give it a 2, I think, in Constructed.
Whoa! Oh, my heart. It's like a 5 for me. It's just big old beef. Mm-hmm. Good value for cost in limited. I hear what you're saying about the shape of removal and interaction in this set for limited purposes does disproportionately affect this card. I also think this set just in general doesn't have as much removal overall compared to like Beyond the Gates especially, or Trial by Frost.
For sure.
I don't know if I have done the math, and by that I mean I have not done the math, so correct me if I'm wrong, get in the comments, but it didn't feel that way in limited. People were just rocking dudes. They were rocking bodies, and you were comparing stats a lot. So what about the rare, though?
Yeah, the rare, I just noticed that the Forest Mountain water symbols they're not filled in on the rare. That's kind of interesting. They're transparent. I don't know if that's true for the other. Yeah, it is true. Weird. Minor detail I've never noticed.
Learn something new every day.
I think the rare is better. It's less mana.
It is, yeah.
From the hand and reserve, it doesn't do anything else different. It's fine. I might bump it up to a 3. I still don't know if you're really playing it in Constructed unless you have a ton of boost synergies or like... There might be some interaction I'm missing here for Constructed, but a 5 mana 5/5 that scales into the late game, that's fine. I think this is just like a 3, personally, for Constructed.
I think what's funny is that it triggers that one hero one less time. Or like, it's less likely to trigger that hero.
At
Which hero is
Saudi.
that? Yeah, thank you. Because it only triggers the first time at 5
Yeah.
mana versus 6 having the flexibility being the first or second.
That's a good point.
For constructed purposes, it's better. Is it 1 point better, or is it still just a 5? I'll give it 1 more point. You know why?
Why?
That head on the right is real cute in the rare art.
Yeah, notably it gains 2 hits going from common to rare, and a bunch of butterflies. There's more butterflies, more better. The Lyra version, still not a whole lot's changing. It's just the rare faction shifted over. It is good. Lyra cares about base statistic 0, so there's that going on with this card.
Yep.
Notably, you get the effect from hand and reserve. So if you're playing something like Finn, for example, this is good to play from your reserve. It's got base statistic 0. This might be the best version of this card, in my opinion, the Lyra one. Which
it does feel like more at home in Lyra.
Yeah, what did I rate the last one? A 3? I think I'll give the Lyra one a 4. Just go linear here.
The generosity of this guy. I'm gonna stick with my 6. I don't think it moves the needle too much, but I like it, and I agree. I think it feels good in Lyra for sure.
That's Lernaean Hydra. Not sure if I pronounced that correctly. We're moving on to Swift Jin. This is one of the spoiled cards, or early spoiled, I should say. This is 6 from hand, 6 from reserve, character elemental, 5/5/3. This has Scout 3, and when you play from anywhere, you may put a card from your reserve in your mana zone. Notably, with this effect, you can choose itself, so you can stack this in a way where you spend the Scout mana, send itself to reserve, and put it right into your mana orb. So it's essentially a 3 mana ramp, is what they refer to that in other card games. 3 mana buff your mana, and that is fine. If you're playing at Saudi, who we've mentioned a lot, this is going to happen a lot with the Scout mechanic. This ramps you a mana, and it draws you a card for 3 mana.
Yeah.
That's solid.
That's definitely solid for Atsadi. Like, I think that's legit relevant in Atsadi, because Atsadi already wants to accelerate mana.
Mm-hmm.
Accelerating mana and getting your trigger at the same time, I think that's like pretty exciting.
It is exciting. Granted, you're never playing this thing for 6 mana, I don't think. Like,
no,
the stats are bad for 6 mana. So yeah. It's hard to evaluate just because when you see this card, you're either going to put it into your mana zone, or you're going to scout it for 3 mana to then put it into your mana zone. So it's like, I don't know. I feel like it can't be much higher than like a 5 for me in that case. Because like you're not playing it in any other deck, I don't think, besides Atsadi. I think it's just going to be a staple in Atsadi, and that's it. And all it's ever going to do is be 3 mana, draw a card, ramp you. That's all it's ever going to be.
So. I think you're probably right. You're going 5. I'm going to be right there with you. I'm going to be right there with you at 5.
I mean, did you play this or see this in pre-release?
Not even one time.
Yeah, so I don't even know. I didn't see it either. I saw it in a pre-release kit. I opened one, didn't play it. So
I could see the sealed kit where you just opened a bunch of high cost and high power stuff, and somehow also got a bunch of Swift Jins. And you're like, well, this is what I'm doing. I'm building up to slam haymakers every day, you know.
That's a good point. That would have been fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. This could be really fun in pre-release or sealed, I mean. But moving on to the rare, we've got better stats. It's a 5/5/5 for 6 rather than a 5/5/3. And slightly different wording here on the play from anywhere effect. You may put a card from your reserve in your mana zone as a ready mana orb. So in some ways, this just makes it a Scout 2 to do his effect. Because you can pay 3 mana and kind of untap one in a way. You just have a new ready mana orb. If you're putting this into your reserve, you're spending 2 mana to just ramp 1 mana orb. It is it's weird. I think it is better than the common version because it is cheaper. Scout 2 is less than Scout 3, and the stats are better. if you do get to a point in the game where you need a 6 mana 5/5/5, but again, stats aren't good for 6 mana. I don't think you're ever happy playing this for 6.
No.
I don't know. I don't know if this makes it, because if you're playing this in Atsadi on turn 1, what other 1 mana player are you gonna have? You got a scout.
I mean,
you could have like, oh, okay. Actually, we just went over Aoife. Yeah, Aoife's 1 mana scout. Draw a card.
but the problem is you would scout Aoife first because Aoife costs 5.
Oh yeah, and then you don't get the.
Yeah, if you scout Swiftgen first, Aoife won't trigger at Saudi.
Yeah, this is not good. This is not synergistic. So I don't think this is better than a 5 for me. I don't think it. Maybe it is better.
Well, hang on. It's better because the art's really cool.
Okay.
It's all blue fire now.
It's a 6. All right, bump it up. No, it is better in Atsadi anyway because it's 2 mana, right? 2 mana is way less than 3 to do its effect. I say 2 mana again because when you put this into your mana zone,
it the first time you play.
Yeah, yeah. I say this is 2 mana because you're going to spend this Scout 3. You're going to put this in your mana zone as a ready mana orb, so you're going to have effectively 1 more mana than you did, meaning you only really paid 2.
Yeah, I think you're more likely to want to scout this in constructed on turn 2 when you have 4 mana, because then having access to 2 mana after scouting this, you're more likely to have something relevant to do at 2 than you were at 1.
Yeah, what you're going to do in Atsadi, for example, is go first turn Swiftgen, second turn Swiftgen.
Ooh, and then
maybe Swiftgen again. Yeah, and lose both of the expeditions both turns. So, yeah, this
you'll have a lot of mana. It'll be really cool,
and a lot of cards because this draws you a card with Atsadi.
It's true. It's true.
Yeah, this card's sweet. It's a 6. Moving on to.
Okay.
Oh, did you rate it?
I'm sticking with 5. I don't think it makes enough of a difference.
Yeah, I don't think this card is great in Axiom, the faction shifted version. There's not really much incentive to scout this in Axiom. The stats are bad. This might be the worst
nothing
version
relevant
of it.
for Axiom. Like, why is this in Axiom? I don't understand.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I can't think of any synergy where this would be relevant. This is probably like a 3 in Axiom.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think even in limited, like I'm not doing this outside of an Atsadi deck. So, I don't know. Mm-hmm. I don't love this effect, by the way, the Jin effects in general that just like, shove themselves into your mana. It doesn't feel good to me most of the time. I don't know why. Maybe I undervalue it. Yeah.
I think it's really good on some of them. The Mighty Jin and the Tiny Jin rare versions are very powerful because you can play them.
Tiny Jin rare is good.
Yeah, because both of those.
This is why we need to play with Bravos. We got to try it at some point.
Both of those Jins have the option to play them twice and get the opportunity to put it in your mana orb, which is definitely good.
Yeah.
All right, enough of Swift Jin. We spent a long time on that guy. Moving on to Theseus.
Yes. The large lad Theseus, 8 from hand, 8 from reserve for 6/6/6. What a bargain. Character adventurer. Now, he does have Scout 3, and from anywhere, return target's character to its owner's hand. And from reserve, I gain 2 boosts. One thing I've noticed with Altered is that bounce is not nearly as good in Altered as it is in Magic. Returning stuff to hand resets the amount of uses the opponent gets out of that thing. And that can be tough. That said, again, you kind of have a split card. I think this is more meaningfully a split card than some of these, where 3 mana is miles away from 8 mana. And so spending 3 mana to bounce a thing, how do you feel about that as, a set of game functions?
I don't know if this works, but what just came to mind is I think you can Scout 3 and return this to your hand, which I don't know why you would ever want to do that.
Why would you do that?
But
yeah, you definitely can because you stack the hand and from anywhere ability.
Because you
whichever order you want.
You could repeatedly activate Atsadi because this is 8. So like you go from 5, 6, 7, 8. Like you could spend 3 mana to just draw a card, I guess. But
are we right about that? If you scout this You have both triggers, and you choose what order they happen in. You pick the arrow ability. Does the hand ability just fizzle of
I
send me to reserve?
I would assume so, but we'll have people correct us in the comments, I'm
Yeah,
sure.
let us know how that actually works. I'm assuming what Bill's saying is correct, but
That's very
we'll see.
funny. I think this card is bad.
Yeah.
It is way too expensive for any of the stuff that it does. This is a solid one for me.
Even on the flip side, if you get to 8 mana, 888 bounce something.
Yeah, that's not good enough. It doesn't win you the game. Like, you're tapping out your entire turn to trade 1-for-1. Yeah, I don't know. I think this is
Yeah,
not good.
it's bad. It's a 1.
Yeah, this is not a good
Now,
card. The rare
we do
version
have,
gets sick glasses, though.
yeah, the rare version not only gets sick glasses, he gets a sick necklace, he gets a sick belt. I mean, my boy's looking fly. That said, he also gets some slight changes to his rules text. Mana costs and stats all the same, but rules text, we unfortunately are paying an extra tariff here on our scout cost, moving it to 4. But our From Anywhere ability now says send target character to reserve, which is way better than its owner's hand. And the From Reserve ability is now 3 boosts instead of 2.
This somehow feels worse. Like, Scout 4 is so much more than Scout 3.
It's a lot. It's a lot of mana. Yeah.
Yeah, this is still a 1. I don't think any of this moves the needle for me. I think this card is so bad.
Still a 1. That's rough. He looks great, so I'm gonna give him a 2.
That's fair. His art is cool, to be fair.
His art's cool.
Oh wait, I just noticed he got like a ponytail as well.
Oh
Right.
yeah. Yeah,
Anyway.
he got some length on his hair. I'm in vibing. Our faction shift is into Muna for the common version. Boo.
Yeah, not great. Still a 1. I don't think
There's just nothing relevant here for Muna, right?
nothing relevant. Yeah, we've already talked about all this scouting and Tasia. It's not good. I mean, no synergy with anchoring, and this isn't good. Still a 1. Probably the worst card we've seen so far.
Where is my guy's ship?
Yeah.
This
Is
is
that the
Theseus we're talking about.
Messick Tet or whatever, which is in this set as well?
Oh, maybe we'll get to it.
All right, enough of
next.
Theseus. He's a fart. We're moving on. All right, Cup of Sap. We're done with characters, thank goodness, with Bravo. So moving on to spells, we've got 1 from hand, 2 from reserve. Spell boon. Target character in reserve gains 2 boosts. Very simple card. As far as I know, I don't think there has to be a character in reserve to target. Like, if you played this on turn 1, I think you can just use it as an after you in Bravos. Not sure how good that is, but you correct me if I'm wrong.
I mean, seems actively bad.
Yeah, I mean, if you're playing some kind of control-y Bravos deck, I don't know. This card is weird. It'd be good in a Bravo Seasons deck. That's come up already a few times tonight. But I don't know. In Limited, it was fine. In Constructed, not sure this will see any play. So I'm going to give this like a 2, I think.
Yeah, I don't like this kind of card. I think it's a lot of... You're just shoving more eggs into a basket. And frankly, so many characters in reserve in this set have the ability to generate their own boosts. So, how necessary is this? I'd rather have something that affects the board right now,
It's the exact same cost. You can compare it to Helping Hand. It's the exact same cost. 1 from hand, 2 from reserve. It's way worse than Helping Hand.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, I don't think this card is very good. Not much else to say, to be honest, about the common version. The rare version is slightly better. Gives you 1 more boost. No additional mana cost. I don't know if it moves the needle much for me. It's still probably a 2.
Yeah.
I mean, 3 boosts
same
is
way.
a lot of mana or a lot of power for 1 mana. But even still, I don't know. It might be a 3 for Constructed.
Yeah, I could see it being, just that little bit much better, but
It is a rare slot. I don't know.
this is your enabler for those dog water 2 mana characters Bravos has.
Yeah.
I guess it's like
Pendacar.
the function of this card. The Pendacar and the Excavator.
Yeah,
Or the Spirit
notably,
Wielder.
this
One of
can't
them.
this can't target characters in play. You know, like
No,
if this could target characters in play, this would be
totally
way
different.
better. Yeah, but
Yeah.
it can only target characters in reserve. I don't think this card's great. And onto the faction shifted, it's the same as the common. I mean, Axiom does not care about boosts even remotely. So again, I don't think this is good. Probably a
Yeah,
limit two.
even more in Axiom do they just generate their own boosts if they care about them in reserve. So like, who
Right.
cares about this? Yeah, yeah.
I played this in
2
the
and 3
pre-release,
all the
and
way.
I played this in the pre-release, and I was never impressed with it. I almost never cast
Yeah.
it, managed it most of the time. But I thought it was going to be good. It wasn't.
I think in limited for your spell slots, you want something that affects the board right now. And I get that you can cast this for 1 and then cast the thing that was in reserve that is now boosted. It just really forecasts what you're doing. And for the little removal there is, I think it does really make you vulnerable to it. Just not what I want to be doing.
Yep, absolutely.
Next.
That's enough for cup of
All right.
sap.
How about a Duel of Grit? 2 mana from hand, 2 mana from reserve for a spell Disruption with Fleeting. Send to reserve target character with hand cost less than or equal to the hand cost of a character you control. So this is kind of the altered equivalent of like a fight spell of some kind. I did play against this. It seemed like my opponent struggled to find a good spot to use this in. And the one they found wasn't super effective. It got rid of a character for sure, but it was like a 2 cost. I wasn't super impressed with this. Again, this is conditional removal. It's removal where you need to have a character. That character needs to have a relatively meaningful hand cost. And your opponent's character has to have less hand cost than yours. Like that's 3 conditions. I don't know. What do you think?
I played this in the pre-release, and I was actually pleasantly surprised by this card. A lot of the time, my opponents were putting boosts on things in their reserve that had low mana cost. They would play it out. It would be large because it had a few boosts on it. And I'll just think of an example like the Lyra Contortionist, for example. Like, it'd be 2 mana that they somehow put boost on it, maybe Cup of Sap, whatever, any other effect that can possibly put boost on card in your reserve. That's just a 2 mana dude with a bunch of stats on it, and Duel of Grit is a 2 mana thing that could deal with it pretty easily. All you have to have is a 2 mana guy.
Sure.
I played this card, and it won me a game. So maybe my anecdotal experience.
I mean, the upside is high, right?
Mm-hmm. I think this card was good in pre-release. I don't know if it's going to be good in constructed. If there's ways to like get your high mana cost cards to stick around, like I'm struggling to think of any right now, but if there are ways, this card would be great.
I mean, yeah. In limited, so I'm on a moon anchoring, but in constructed, I don't know.
I mean, the most played characters in constructed right now are 2 and 3 mana costs. Of course,
Sure.
like that's the best thing you want to be doing. So you're going to be playing them on your side too. I mean, this is probably just going to be Red's Off You Go, which is what they were missing. Like the other 2 mana removal spell in Bravos right now is Intimidation, and that bounces something to their hand. I think this is better than that card. So
yes.
And Intimidation notably is better at the rare slot because it becomes not conditional. I think Intimidation has like a restriction of it needs to be below a certain mana cost. But
yes,
yeah, I think this card's better than Intimidation. So personally, I would rate this at like a 5, only because I think this is going to be Bravos' best removal spell.
I was gonna put it at 5 as well. As much shit as I was talking about it, like I think it's like a perfectly reasonable removal spell. I think you play this in limited. I just think that there are going to be awkward situations where it's not going to do what you want it to do, and you're going to be a little frustrated. And then there are going to be games like yours on the other end of the spectrum where it will just straight up win you the game because opponent had an eggs in basket strategy.
Right. Actually, I want to adjust it. I want to make it a 6, actually, because I do
Okay,
think it's going to be their best removal spell, and I think it's going to see a lot of play in Bravos.
fair enough.
Moving on to the rare. This one, not much changes, except it now says discard a character rather than send to reserve. That's really good.
Yeah, that's a lot better.
That is really, really good. And straight up, I'm going to say this is like a 7 for Bravos.
Yep. I was going to jump all the way to 7 myself from 5. Yeah, just shutting down a second use of a character, that's just huge. Makes a big difference. And discard gets around like anchored and stuff, right?
Yep.
All that sort of stuff. Doesn't care about it.
Does not care.
Big.
Yeah, this is a good card. In Lyra, it's the exact same rare faction shifted over. That's very powerful as well. Lyra also notably has a lot of effects with their support abilities that reduce the cost of cards that you play. So getting a big, beefy character out is not that hard in Lyra.
Yeah, it's a little easier for sure.
So it'll be easy to discard something with a high mana cost in Lyra. I think this is... It's weird because Lyra also has access to Off You Go, which is competing for the rare slot with this. I don't know. I think this is going to be worse most of the time than Off You Go. But it still say discard. I could see a split. I could see, deciding to choose one or the other based on the meta. This is probably still a 7 for me.
Yeah, I think it's consistent with the rare Bravos iteration. Discard's just really good. Certainly Lyra will have choices to make when it comes to the removal package.
I'm thinking about all the ratings that we've given so far, and I'm just like, we're gonna see our combined score at the end of this video and be like, why did we rate this card this high? I know that's gonna happen. Now that we've leveled out. But okay, moving on. We've got the Stew. This is 2 from hand, 2 from reserve, Expedition Permanent Gear. It says, target character gains a boost when you play this from anywhere. And then characters in my expedition are seasoned. Man,
Yuck.
Yeah, I thought this card was going to be good in the pre-release.
You did.
I was playing 3 of these in one of my pre-release decks, and it was
How many did you have before we edited down?
It was 3, yeah.
It was 3? Okay.
Yeah. And it wasn't good. This card was kind of poo-poo in limited. What am I trying to say? That a lot of the characters in limited and Whispers from the Maze right now, they don't give themselves boosts like when they go into the expedition. So this is the thing giving them boosts, and then they have seasoned, so they're just going to go to reserve with 1 boost on them for 2 extra mana. Not good. So
not good.
Again, like if you're playing the Bravo season strategy, you don't need this card. Not really sure what this card is for, I'm going to be honest. This
is making me hungry.
Yeah, the art's great if you like mushrooms, because that's the first thing you see. But
big fan.
Yeah, I mean, I like mushrooms for sure. But those mushrooms, they don't look that appetizing, to be honest. They look...
You know what does, though? The beer in the rare version. Let's talk about that. Wow.
Yeah, cup of sap. Yeah, this... I don't know what this card is for.
I don't know either.
This card's like a 1, I think.
Yeah, I'm never playing this card. My challenge to you is beat me with this card, and then I'll reconsider.
Mm-hmm. The rare version is 1 from hand, 1 from reserve. Pretty sizable upgrade here. And you may pay 1 to have target character gain a boost or lose fleeting. So it becomes a bit more versatile.
But more expensive. Ugh.
I think you're only ever playing this if you want the seasoned effect on your cards. Like you're not playing Bravo seasoned, but you're doing enough things with boosts. It has some flexibility if you want to like make something lose fleeting or give it a boost. I don't know. This is better. Still not great. I like that this is very flexible. It's cheap. I think this bumps it up to like a 3 for me personally.
The version of this card that would actually be playable would say, you may pay 1 to have target character lose fleeting. If you don't, it gains 1 boost. Because then it's the common version with upside.
Yeah.
As is, this is very muddy in terms of whether or not this is actually an upside beyond being cheaper. Because, like, if you pay once, then you've paid the common price. You better have lost fleeting for that, because paying one for the boost at that point, you wasted your rare slot if you're in constructed. So, like, I just don't know. You like this at 2. I think it's still a 1. I just don't think anyone's ever going to play this card.
I think I said it was a 3. But
You want 3 for this? You're crazy.
only because it's 1 mana and the flexibility is nice. Like, it can be an after you. It can be.
I'm a sloppy little guy for a 1 mana card. This is not it.
That's fair. I'm hoping that we're not pleasantly. I'm hoping that we are surprised at if this card sees play or if it's good.
100%.
Onto the Muna version. This is a little bit more interesting to me than the Bravos because Muna doesn't have seasoned, as far as I know. There's no cards in Muna that gives your stuff seasoned. And you're playing a lot of anchored boys. So you're more likely to have something in play to give a boost that gains seasoned. That's exciting. That's interesting. That's something to think about. The Bravos version, not exciting. Not good soup.
You know what this card is really good with is the Shroom that gives itself a 1/1 counter at noon.
Yeah, I think that's this Sneezer or Snoozer. Why did they make those cards so similar?
I don't know.
That's so dumb. Sneezer Shroom, bad. I think.
Yeah, like this card in a Tasia build with the Shroom and with aloe vera and stuff like that. Like, I'm in.
Yeah, that could be cool. This card's better in Muna. I still don't know if it's amazing, but like I kind of want it to be good, so I'm gonna give it a 3.
Yeah, I'm sticking 3 on this. This is the one of these that I think is actually has potential, and just because of how valuable giving Muna Seasoned is, with all the anchoring and all of the boosting that is happening, I'm pretty interested. So
that's the stew.
Let's move on. Next one. After the stew always comes the mess. 2 from hand, 2 from reserve for a landmark permanent construction. When a character leaves your expeditions, I gain a food counter. You may exhaust me and spend 3 of my food counters to resupply.
Notably, I think this is one of the first landmarks we've seen so far that is gaining a counter that you can augment. We've not talked about that yet, but the augment ability can target these permanents, and you can increase the food counters on these things.
I mean, I like a resupply. I like when the trigger for a counter is a thing that just happens all the time. This is relatively cheap. I don't know. This feels playable.
I absolutely think this is playable, and I think it will see play in Bravos. I think this is
interesting.
One of the best cards coming from this set for Bravos, because, again, comparing it to Kojo, for example, where you get Buddha every other turn, this just gives you a free counter on this thing. Because it says when a character leaves. So I think this card's great. It's definitely going to see play. Not sure which version, if it's going to be common or rare, but I'm going to give this a 6, I think. Resupply, real good.
Okay.
I could see it at a 7, because like you're probably going to be resupplying every turn or close to it.
Really? You think that often?
Yeah, because like I said, if you're playing Kojo, which is probably where this is going to see play, you're getting at least 1 counter every other turn. It's going to be real easy to, like, you're playing Tiny Jin and you're playing a bunch of random, like, 1 mana dudes that are going to trigger this. I think this is going to be good. I think it's a 6, though.
Okay. I'm going to put it at 5. I'm not quite as high on it as you are. I think if you are activating it literally every turn, that's pretty awesome. It does mean that you're playing or like generating somehow 3 characters every turn. I think that's pretty hard to do consistently, especially in limited.
Just in limited for sure. More.
And I think even in constructed, I think you're going to struggle. Like Buddha is every other turn. So half your turns, you got to still find a way to hard generate 3 guys. You know what I mean? So
well, this does fuel itself. Like you resupply, you know, if you find a dude with it, like you got another thing to put a counter on it. So
yeah, I like the card. You know, I'm excited to have a chance to play with it for sure. What about the rare?
I think so. The difference with the rare is he cares about non-token characters. That's really important. And you have to spend 4 food counters to, instead of resupply, draw a card. This is worse. Because a lot of the time, you're going to get these counters from tokens, like I was just talking about with Buddha, and any other thing that's making random tokens. This is worse, but I don't know. I don't know if it's like, excuse me. I don't know if it's like multiple points worse. It's probably a 4 for me.
Okay. Yeah, I think... Go ahead.
Drawing a card is better than resupplying, of course, but it is more expensive, and it has this stipulation of non-token.
I think what will happen is people will try this rare version and then realize just how bad these constraints are. That non-token constraint is rough because, like, obviously generating tokens is going to be one of the ways that you achieve getting 3 guys to leave your expeditions every turn. Now they need to not be tokens, and also they need to be 4 of them. Like, you're not, with the rare version, using this every turn. Straight up. I don't think it's possible. You are at best getting it every other turn, and I think that's worse. I think I'd rather have different cards every turn than the same card I get to use twice every other turn. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I did just think of another synergy with this. When a character leaves your expeditions, that's scout, baby. Like, you're paying more mana. That's this card is great. It might even be a 7 at common. I'm gonna bump up my score here.
Okay. I have logged it as such.
I think you're triggering that every turn. But sorry, onto the faction shifted. That is the mess.
It's the bad one.
It's the bad one. Yeah, it's not good. Damn. Sorry. Ysmir is...
You're having a stroke?
I am having a stroke. We've been doing this for a while. When a non-token character... Well, Ysmir is making tokens, okay? If you're playing Lindaway, if you're playing a Faunus, if you're playing a Kesha's not making that many, but they're making tokens, okay? Like, this just isn't going to trigger that often. I don't think it's very good.
Imagine if it was the common text.
It would be really good.
Yeah.
If it was the common and you were playing it in, like, Lindaway, it would be insane.
I was just thinking about Lindaway. It would be so nuts.
It would be absolutely crazy in Lindaway.
This card's bad and rare.
Yeah, I could see it getting some play in Lindaway just because, like, the synergy with Jellyfish, being able to play it multiple times and sacrificing it and stuff. No, it's still like a 3, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just worse. It's just worse in Ysmir for the most part.
Yep.
I'm not in. I'm out.
That's the mess, and that is all of Bravos.